So, I'm sorry. Moving on. Biogenic upgrade. 4 colorless, 2 green. Distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures. Then double the number +1 counters on each of those creatures. Oh, so many. Okay, so it's better if you already had +1 counters on those creatures. Still 6 mana. I guess it could buff your Simic team. 6 mana? No, I don't see it. Too much mana. Too little, too late is what I think about that card. Too situational. At 6 mana, if you're an aggressive deck, you're most likely, your opponent is down to like 2 life or something, and you have like 1 creature left maybe. And no. And that creature is already getting blocked by something, so no, I don't see it. Rhythm of the Wild. Creature spells you control. Oh, I already saw this spoiled, actually. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Non-taking creature tokens you control have riot. This is like the best one-of card you could ever run in your deck. I don't think riot stacks. If it stacks, you can run multiple of this, of course. But I'm pretty sure it doesn't stack, so you can only... when you draw your second copy of this, it's shice. So it's amazing for 3 mana. And running this will always, if you run Gruul and if you run creatures, you will always run this. There's like there's no reason not to run this unless all your creatures already have riot in your deck. It's probably even worth splashing green for or splashing red for in some decks. That's how good it is. Yeah, I've seen this card before, and it's so amazing. It's a lot of people compared it to Yavimaya, something which gave all your creatures haste. This gives haste and it can't be countered, so this is like even better than the Yavimaya, I think. I think you could sacrifice Yavimaya for +2/+2. Still think this is better in current standard. Maybe Yavimaya was better back in that format, but in current standard, I think this is better. You can get it down on turn 2 with Alana War, also noteworthy. This is a buff on all creatures, even if you don't need the haste, like even if you're not that kind of deck. Like you could use this even in a non-Gruul deck, if you just splash a little bit of colors, it's easily splashable in a lot of decks. It just buffs your creatures and it ensures that it can't be countered. Yeah, it's just amazing, will change standard. Yeah, moving on. Bankrupt in Blood. As an initial cost to cast this spell, sacrifice 2 creatures, draw 3 cards. You're losing 2 creatures, you're drawing 3 cards, you're spending 1 card, so it sums out at 0. So this card doesn't do anything, really. Is my conclusion. If you compare this, I guess it's weird that I don't like this and I like the previous card, which was had an ability on a stick. But that card, both it has a body, it's a creature, it will eat removal most probably. It has a very strong effect that it doesn't. It gives mana. Your opponent has to sacrifice a creature, so it interacts with your opponent. This does not. Yeah, it's just bad in every way. It doesn't give you card advantage because you're sacrificing 2 things. No, I don't see this. The only time this is good is if your opponent is playing Dowsing Dagger. Then it's the best sideboard tech ever against that deck. I actually have a deck like that, but I don't think people would be sideboarding this. Blade Juggler. 4 colorless, 1 black. Spectacle, 2 and 1 black. When Blade Juggler enters the battlefield, it is 1 damage to you, and you draw a card. 3/2 for 2, 1 damage, draw a card. So it's a We already have a Vampire, which is a 1/1 for 2, which doesn't require Spectacle, which you draw a card of, which you also lose 1 life of, which I think is just better than this. Yeah, it's a 3/2, but 3/2 still dies to anything on the battlefield. If it was a 3/3, then it doesn't die to everything. 3/2 still dies to everything. Smelt Ward Ignis. 1 colorless, 1 red. 2 colorless, 1 red. Sacrifice Smelt Ward Ignis. Gain control of target creature you control with target creature with power 3 or less until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn. Activate its only. This is another thing which I think they should just add a keyword for. There's so many effects that untaps a creature, it gains haste, you gain control of it, and then you return it. This should be something like steal target creature or something, or borrow target creature or something. That's what it should say on this. It should be so much easier to read. This seems... Because you need to sacrifice Smeltward Ignis to gain this control, and it's only until end of turn, and it's only 3 or less. No, this is crap. You would never ever play this. It dies to everything. You need to sacrifice it to gain the effect. It's only 3 or less, so it's probably not a creature you even want to take. No. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. This is just bad. Electrodominance. Electrodominance deals X damage to any target. You may cast a card with converted mana cost X or less from... Yeah, I've seen this spoiled also. You may cast a card with converted mana cost X or less from your hand without paying its mana cost X to red. So I didn't understand this card at first when I read it. I thought this was still restricted, that, you know, you could only cast something that you could cast in that phase anyway. So if it's a Planeswalker, for instance, you need to play this in your main phase. But from what I've heard from people who knows Magic rules and you know, wording a bit better, what this actually does is that you can play it at the end of your opponent's turn, and you can get in, you know, anything, a Planeswalker or anything, which makes this, of course, amazing. I mean, you can play this, and you can have, even if you have Planeswalkers which don't protect themselves, you can play those Planeswalkers now. Because they don't need to protect themselves if you have both something which kills the most likely target to, you know, kill your Planeswalker, and also you have all the mana in the world to do whatever you want the turn after. So this enables you to play in any Planeswalker. This enables you to play creatures which you would probably otherwise not be able to play, like there's the what's it called, Thief of Sanity, for instance. Is amazing if you play it in your opponent's turn at their end step, and it's silly bad if you play... it's not bad to play it out. It's not a bad creature per se, but because it's a really strong effect if you get to attack with. But I played a lot with that card, and the times I get to attack with it is close to 0. This could enable that, which would just let you, you know, run away with the game. Thief of Sanity, end of turn, it's just 5 mana, it kills one of the opponent's creatures, next turn attack in, you know, you already gained something back of Thief of Sanity. You can hold up, you know, counter mana so they can't kill Thief of Sanity, or whatever. You can just do it with a Planeswalker, it's the same thing, you know, whatever Jeskai control, you know, creature, or I don't know, Niv Mizzet, if you want to play that end of turn, that works. Yeah, it's just silly good, and it will be played everywhere and all the time. Frilled Mystic, 2 green, 2 blue, flash. When Frilled Mystic enters the battlefield, you may counter target spell. So it's any spell, that's good. 3/2. This is what's it called, Mystic Snake, I think was the original. It was a 2/2 for 4 mana, and that spell was really good. Really, really good. When you're holding up counter mana, you really want some way to be able to, you know, advance your board while you're holding up counter mana, and this allows you to do that. It's a relevant body. It's not the best. If it would have been a 3/3, it would been amazing. But then it would probably have been a rare, a mythic or something. Now it's just really good. Moving on. Rampage of the Clans. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller creates a 3/3 green centaur creature token. This is the Timmy card of the day. I think Timmy is going to play all his shitty 1 mana artifacts in his deck out the 3 first turn, and then expect the Rampage of the Clans to turn them into 3/3s. And he's either getting countered or all the centaurs are getting settled or wreckaged. Yeah, this only works. No, this doesn't work. That's what I'm trying to say. Moving on. Guardian Project. 3 colorless, 1 green. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same number as creatures... If it doesn't have the same number as another creature you control or a creature in your graveyard, draw a card. Same name as another. Okay. So when you play things with different names, you draw a card. This is a strong effect. It's not hard to play different creatures. It's easy to splash. Problem is this what you want to do with 4 mana? But I guess if you compare this to something like what's called Beast Whisperer or whatever it is, which is a 2/3, which is super easy to remove, this is hard to remove. Gives the same effect. And Beast Whisperer is played. So this will see play. It's my reasoning for this. This will see play. Yep. Moving on. Ah, wait. If it doesn't have the same number as another creature you control. Wait, so it doesn't work if you don't have any creatures out, right? Oh, that's a deal breaker then. No, if it doesn't have another. So it works if you have no creatures. Okay, so then it's fine. Then it's a good card. Moving on. Smothering Tide. 3 colorless, 1 white. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If the player doesn't, you create a treasure artifact token with sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. So every turn your opponent is not going to pay 2 mana, so you're getting a treasure every turn. That's very slow ramp. Treasure map? No. Treasure map still too slow. If you have a treasure map out, your opponent is going to pay 2. That's a problem with this card. If you have some way to abuse this, then your opponent will just pay 2. If you don't have, he will just give you all the treasures in the world. Because it doesn't matter. Yeah, I guess this is another commander card. Yay! Moving on. Surta Goblin. 1 red, 1 green, Riot. So it's either a 3/3 for 2, which is good, or a 2/2 haste for 2, which is good. There are better haste creatures. We saw the red-black 2/2 haster, which is just strictly better than this, so... no. There are Gruul as such strong creatures already. It's only if Gruul is missing another 2-drop or something, like this slots in as I don't want this, but it will have to do. Gutterbones. Gutterbones enters the battlefield tapped. That's crap. 1 black. That's good. 1 colorless, 1 black. Return Gutterbones from your graveyard to your hand. Activates ability only if your opponent lost life this turn. So it's Spectacle Comeback. 2/1. Shitty Body. If you're going to recur this, it costs 3. If you compare this to Reassembling Skeleton, it costs 2 without any requirement, and both comes into play tapped though. Could see this being played. I could. In a deck with a lot of wraths and reassembling skeletons, and one skeleton gets in and then all your gutter bones gets back, and it just keep, you know, when you got enough mana you can just play out you can play any number of wraths, just wrath the board all the time, and just keep reoccurring your skeletons and zombies. Yeah, I think this will see play, even though it's I think actually reassembling skeleton is better, weirdly enough, because it's cheaper. Basilica Bellhaunt, 2 white, 2 black. When Bellhaunt enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card and you gain 3 life. Doesn't have any flying, any fancy abilities, it's just a shittier Bolas. My prediction will never see play out of limited. Moving on. Pitiless Pontiff, 1 white, 1 black. 1 colorless, sacrifice another creature. Pitiless Pontiff gains Death Touch and Indestructible until end of turn. So, good sacrifice outlet, check. Death Touch and Indestructible are useful abilities. I mean, not useless. Aggressively costed, yes. Yeah, this is highly dependent on if there's a deck which can get enough, you know. This is another perfect sacrifice outlet. We already have one, the black one. So if you couple this with red, you take over your opponent's creatures sometimes and sacrifice them. This would work great, I think. I don't know exactly what a sacrifice deck will contain, but it will probably contain this card. I don't know what other cards there are to sacrifice, because you won't always be able to, you know, take over your opponent's creatures, because your opponent will not even always have creatures. So you need to have something to fall back on in that case. Cry of the Carnarium, 1 colorless, 2 black. Yeah, I've already seen this one. This is the upgraded Golden Demise. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Exile all creature cards in graveyards that were put there from the battlefield this turn. If a creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So it's just Golden Demise with exile, which is just better for most decks. The only time you don't want this, of course, is if you're running Mr. Gutterbones himself. Moving on. Consecrate. Exile target card from a graveyard, draw a card. Very situational. Consume. Target player sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. You gain life equal to its power. This kills Carnage Tyrant. This kills any big creature. If Hexproof is a thing after this comes out, if people are still running Carnage Tyrants and Niv Missets, maybe not Niv, it's decent against Niv Misset, I guess, but Carnage Tyrant and Vinemares and whatever Hexproofers, there's the new blue one as well, which has conditional Hexproof, which this one kills. Then yeah, this will be played in that case. Otherwise, we have better sacrifice creatures. Like the Eldest Reborn is just strictly better than this in a lot of cases. It's only against decks which runs a lot of small creatures and Carnage Tyrant, which is better against. High alert. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have defender. 2 colorless, 1 blue, 1 white, untap target creature. This is the Elder Dragon on a enchantment. I don't remember his name. Arcanis? No. Something. We already have this effect, and the problem with this effect is that all the defender creatures in standard right now are shies, so I don't say it is getting played unless it's for actually probably this ability right here, Assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. There's a lot of creatures actually in white which have a lot of toughness, which would be played in, you know, white weenie aggressive decks like Takal, whatever he's called, who the one who hosts Golgari, I don't remember that white creature's name. There's a lot of white creatures, Snubhorn, Sentry, like a lot of white creatures, which this is just, you know, buffs those creatures. So you could probably just run it as a one-of in a almost mono-white deck. Except for that, the defender part, don't see that as being relevant, as there are no good defender creatures. Moving on. Carnival deals 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker and 1 damage to that permanent's controller. Decent, not good. Moving on. Carnage deals 3 damage to target opponent. That player discards a card. So 2 weak effects, but you have the flexibility of going with whichever you want. Yeah, so it is decent. Not exactly what anyone wants, because both effects are a bit weaker than what you could get otherwise. But having the flexibility is actually really good, so might see play. Prime Speaker Vanifar. 2 colorless, 1 green, 1 blue. Sacrifice another creature. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrificed creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield, shuffle your library, activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So only during your turn you get a Birthing Pod effect. Birthing Pod was the same on an artifact. It did cost 3, if I remember correctly, and 1 to activate. So it costs 4. You could do it the same turn it came out, which was the amazing part about it. It has 2/4, so it doesn't die to everything. What would you search for? I mean, this will be all the, you know, people who like to run experimental decks will run this. And there'll surely be some kind of combo for this. But it will be very easy to disrupt. It will be very, you know, reliant on your opponent not having enough removal. So, in summary, it's not a Birthing Pod, it's worse. It will only be played in some experimental deck that will probably not be tier 1. Moving on. Vigilance, Trample, Haste. It costs 5, colorless, 3 green, 7/7. Vigilance, Trample, Haste. All those abilities are good. The mana cost is insane, 8 mana. When End Race Forerunners enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Vigilance and Trample. So unless you're sheeting this back from your graveyard with an Eldest Reborn or something, no, it's bad. Pestilent Spirit, just because of the mana costs too. Like, it's not that body is bad, it's not that the ability is bad, it's just you're never gonna get to that kind of mana. That's just how it is. Pestilent Spirit, 2 colorless, 1 black. Menace, Death Touch. 2 nice abilities to have on 1 card. They have to block with 2, so 2 things are dying if you're blocking this. Else it's semi-unblockable, but your opponent of course can choose to do it. The problem, I guess, is that if they have 2 tokens, your Pestilent Spirit will be very sad spirit. Instant and sorcery spells you control have Death Touch. That's good. That's really good. Most sweepers, though, sweep everything anyways. You probably don't want to run shitty burn cards to make this work. It's too bad that it's not planeswalkers. There's like, I'm thinking like this Hiatli or whatever her name is. I can't come up with any instants and sorceries, which this is amazing with. Of course you can sweep the board, but play a 2 mana combo to sweep the board. No. there might be a card I'm not thinking about. And the creature is actually good in itself, so even if it's just Menace Death Touch 3/2, it's decent. Dies to everything, of course. Dies to all the removal. Might see play. But if it sees play, I don't think it's just because it's Menace Death Touch, which is nice. I think it's probably going to be because you have something to combo this with. And I don't know what yet.